Okay, this talk is about age differences in attitudes to mathematics and is given by myself and Dowker together with my students Olivia Cheriton and Rachel Horton. And we are comparing different age groups with regard to attitudes to maths. So we're comparing early primary school children, year 2, late primary school, year 6, early secondary school, year 9, and late secondary school, year 12. And our objectives are to investigate age differences between pupils in year 2, 6, 9, and 12 in attitudes to mathematics, especially given that a number of studies suggest that attitudes to mathematics deteriorate as children get older, and also to examine gender differences in attitudes and performance, given that while most studies nowadays suggest that boys and girls perform similarly in maths, they do often suggest that females have more negative attitudes to maths and are more anxious about it than males. So we predicted, therefore, that attitudes would be more negative in higher than lower year groups. We also expected, on the basis of previous studies, that self-rating in mathematics would be the strongest predictor of performance in the primary year groups, but that anxiety about maths would be the strongest predictor of performance in secondary year groups. We also expected that girls and boys would perform similarly, but on the basis again of a number of people's studies, that girls would have more negative attitudes and especially greater anxiety. So in this study, there were 216 participants. These included 59 pupils in year 2, aged 6 to 7, who included 30 girls, 53 pupils in year 6, ages 10 to 11, including 26 girls, and the year 2 and year 6 pupils were from the same state school. 50 pupils in year 9, ages 13 to 14, including 24 girls, and from a non-selective state comprehensive secondary school in a similar area to the primary school, and 54 pupils in year 12, age 16 to 17, including 33 girls, and taken from a sixth form college in the same area as the schools. And they were given the British Abilities Scales Basic Number Skills Test, and also the Mathematics Attitude and Anxiety Questionnaire, which I developed together with my student Gemma Thomas. And using this questionnaire, the children rated 7 school mathematics activities, for example, written sums, mental maths, understanding the teacher, etc., on 4 or 5-point pictorial scales, one of how much they liked the activity, one of how good they thought they were at the activity, i.e. self-rating, one at how unhappy they'd be if they failed at or couldn't do a task, and one about how anxious they'd feel if they couldn't do a task. And this is the pictorial, shows the pictorial scales from a big tick through a small tick, question mark, small cross to big cross, for self-rating, if you think you're very good at maths or very good at a particular activity, or give yourself a big tick. If you feel you're not very good at the task at all, you give yourself a big cross. Scale from 2 wasps through 1 wasp to nothing, to 1 sweet, to 2 sweets for how much they dislike or like maths in general, or a topic within it. That most children having been shown to almost all like sweets and dislike wasps. Then classic smiley faces scale from a big smile to a big frown for the happiness and unhappiness, and then of the similar faces demonstration, moving from a very anxious face to a very relaxed face, based on Roger Hargrave's Mr. Worry book. And we then carried out between participants ANOVA with year group, year 2 versus year 6 versus year 9 versus year 12, and gender, boys versus girls, as the grouping factors, and the basic number skills scaled score, self-rating, liking, non-unhappiness, failure, and non-anxiety were the dependent variables, and I will be mostly talking here about the attitude variables rather than the scaled score, except a little later when I talk about the extent to which the attitudes predicted performance. So, as regards year group effects or associations with self-rating, there was a significant effect of year group on self-rating, so that the means out of a possible score of 35 were 28.85 at year 2, 27.33 in year 6, 26.04 in year 9, and 24.11 in year 12. So we can see a gradual deterioration in self-rating, and it went down as age increased, and the effect remained significant when the basic number skills score was included as a covariate, so that it wasn't dependent on how this particular effect was not dependent on how well people were actually doing on a maths test. And there was also a significant effect of gender on self-rating, boys rating themselves higher with a mean of 27.7 out of a possible 35 versus girls having a mean score of 25.67. And there was a significant interaction between year group and gender, so that in year 2, girls actually rated themselves slightly higher than boys did, but their self-rating declined more thereafter. As regards liking for maths, there was also a significant effect of a year group on liking for maths. So means out of a possible score of 35, where at year 2, 27.78, in year 6, 26.94, in year 9, 25.38, and in year 12, 21.48. So there was a fairly marked decline in liking for maths, especially between year 9 and year 12, and the effect again remained significant when actual score on a maths test was included as a covariate. As regards gender, there was also a significant main effect of gender on liking for maths. So boys liked maths more than the girls did, boys having a mean score of 26.59 out of a possible 35 for liking maths, as compared with 24.41 for girls. And there was a trend towards a similar year group gender interaction to that for self-rating, of gender differences increasing with age, but it did not reach significance in this case. As regards level of unhappiness, or rather non-unhappiness at failure, we gave the scores for all attitude variables in the direction of higher score, meaning a more positive attitude. Means out of a possible score of 35, where in year 2, 20.05, in year 6, 15.98, in year 9, 13.6, and in year 12, 13.48. So definitely an increase in unhappiness and failure with age, with a particularly marked difference between year 2 and older children, and there was no effect of gender. As regards anxiety, or rather non-anxiety, there was a significant effect again of year group, means out of a possible score of 35, where in year 2, 21.63 score for lack of anxiety, year 6, 18.04, year 9, 12.82, and year 12, 14.48. So an increase in anxiety with age, though, if anything, year 12 pupils were less anxious than year 9 pupils, certainly a big difference between primary and second-grade pupils. And there was no effect of gender, once again. And when we looked at attitudes as predictors of arithmetic performance, meaning statistical predictors in multiple regression, and we weren't looking at predictors in the longitudinal sense, we carried out multiple regressions for each gender and each year group separately, and for the group as a whole, with British Number School Standard Score as the dependent variable and the attitude scores as predictors. For the whole group, the 4 predictors explained 34% of the variance in British Number School's standard score. Self-rating was a very significant predictor, but no other predictor was significant. And results were similar for each year group separately, so the same for younger and older pupils, and for each gender separately. Year self-rating was the only significant independent predictor of performance. The exception was year 2, and no attitude variable at all was a significant predictor of performance for these youngest children. At any rate, self-rating was an important predictor in all age groups after year 2, and anxiety was not. So what can we conclude? The study supports the hypothesis that attitudes to maths decline with age. In this study, self-rating rather than anxiety was the main independent predictor of performance among older as well as younger pupils.